For anybody who's really hanging into this book reading, I give a lot of my opinions. I want this to be more of a book discussion. Can't really find anybody that's read these books to have that discussion, so I'm reading and then discussing, and we're posting and commenting. So this is where a lot of my focus is going to be in the near future. With that said, we're halfway through this book, but there's 7 of them. So I'll continue reading with this other table. Okay. In quantum computer, the clock speed is set at 28 Hertz. Memory of 3.24 trillion qubits is updated at a slow clock speed and looped like a snake eating itself. The slow update allows the 3.24 trillion qubits to set itself relative to the local and non-local positions. The slow update allows a long reference time in loop memory. The time, for example, is the current model of quantum computer RISI is about 7 minutes. The technology allows the time for memory to be 45 years before it is lost in harmonic loop memory. The memories formed are associational or correlated memories and model how microtubules memory may self-organize according to the correlational opponent processing theory, COP theory. References to COP theory can be found on the internet at www.enticypress.com, enticypress.com. According to COP, memories are formed in a quantum field and strengthened due to the interaction of the correlational oppositional ratio enhanced. The core processing is the particle half of the memory system. In other words, the white sheep are taking care of resetting the entire field, while the black sheep are handling the processing of information without using any energy. From the shepherd's point of view, the entire dynamic is a flock of sheep doing what flocks of sheep do. Within the microtubules, memory is formed in the quantum potential field evident at the center of the microtubule as a field of non-organization water molecules with the capability of transmitting hyperspatial information faster than the speed of light. This accounts for collective consciousness or swarm intelligence as outlined by Kelly 1996. It also accounts for information coming from parallel worlds and helps explain the processes by which people receive revelations, channeling information, receive insights, and invent new ideas and technology. All such information takes form because of the full potential self of each individual. It is transmitted through single strings of water molecules into holodynes. This entire process is enhanced by sensory input coming from each of the senses. These senses also contain a quantum dynamic, wave and particle dynamic at one and the same time. The peripheral of the eye, for example, reflects the context of the vision, while the fovea reflects the content. Light striking the eye is filtered through fine-grained screens of the fovea, then that give it particle form, and gross-grained screens of the peripheral that give it waveform. These two forms are ironically spun by a Gregorian-type transform when they meet within the optic nerve and are transmitted directly into the central nervous system for storage into the coherent, self-organizing microtubule memory system as holodynes. The microtubule enhances new information into long-term storage by growing a biological system of arms, or microtubule associated protein strings map. Each map is situated as exactly the harmonic crossover point, as when the guitarist puts his finger on a certain place at a certain note. So maps create a holding function of quantum frequencies, thus holding them in place for long-term memory. Consider the interactions of electrons in a capacitor. In a similar circuit, two charged plates connected to a power source will generate a standing interaction of opposites. One side will be positive and the other negative. The only current flow is when the capacitor is charged to capacity or when the voltage is removed. A capacitor functions then as a battery or storage place of informational energy. Such energy can be amplified and generated, for example, music in a radio or digital information for a computer. Atoms are neutral because the electrons are balanced with the positive charge of the protons. A capacitor is neutral because the charge is balanced with positive and negative sides. A transistor can be used as a special type of on-off capacitor. A large power input into a capacitor will cause it to explode. A large charge into a transistor will cause it to explode. In a similar quantum computer, the goal is to make calculations in neutral, and the circuit can calculate its neutrality over a long period of time. A transistor has some important qualities that allow it to be used as a quantum computer. Consider, for example, the short distance between the positive charge side and the negative charge side. This allows the formation of very high capacitance. Also consider the reverse flow of positive holes and the Hall effect as an oppositional balance and calculating force. Also consider the high resistance to reverse current flow, which is different from the traditional capacitor. Information can be encoded on a transistor as a unique pattern of positions of hole and electrons in a neutral zone of the transistor, acting as a charge coupling device. That information is equal to about 3.24 trillion qubits. This entire field can be treated as one byte. Why is this important? Because the information is oppositional or an opponent to each other and imbalance. This describes precisely the state of affairs that the microtubule model, according to the holodynamic theory, outlines. The nature of quantum states of information from according to an emerging order where each stage of development emerges in quantized oppositional steps, each with an updraft and downdraft dynamic, and each with choice at every moment in time. The entire system is balanced to create the ups and downs of life, the good and the bad, illness, health, male, female, rich, poor, continually interacting in a collective field. I don't know if that's making too much sense to everybody, but it's almost like the only way life happens is through the negative, positive, updrafting, downdrafting. This will all pull together if you listen to all books. This may not make too much sense, but it is more, once we understand the outer world, our external world, the computer world, technology world, we're starting to understand ourselves and what our capabilities are. A lot of that is, he proves his concept by using, the bigness of our world to prove the smallness of our world. When you understand the smallness of the world, then you can understand the bigness of the world. The two are identical. And that's basically the bigger drift of when you're listening to all of this. It's not so much about computers, but is using technology to show and prove what's going on in your mind. If you can get a computer to do this, and this is the same thing that's going on within inside us, then the same has to be true. So that just seems to be the insane direction that we're going to, is we only are creating all of this technology super intelligent, just to try and understand ourselves a little better, it seems. What does it mean to be human? It just seems like it's a process to understand ourselves. But in the meantime, because we don't understand ourselves, the technology we're using is designed to kill us because we don't understand ourselves yet. Anyways, in a quantum computer, information is a form of circuit consisting of an activity valvelet or stimulus or opponent wavelet. Well, let me say that again. In a quantum computer, information is formed in a circuit consisting of an activating wavelet or stimulus or opponent wavelet formed from the weighted memory stored in the neutral chamber. Like a hologram, there is a reference wave and an information wave interfering with one another but held in a suspension. It is interesting to note that information formed within the isolated environment of a microtubule consists of an activating wavelet or stimulus form sensory input. This sensory input has both particle and wave dynamics that have been integrated and holographically spun for entry into the isolation chamber of the microtubule. This is received then as an opponent wavelet weighted according to the screen controlling mechanism of what is already stored in the microtubules. In other words, when a specific information system, a holodyne, is in control, the fine-grained screens and the gross-grained screens are under its control. They are giving form to the potential of light entering the eye or to any and all sensory input mechanisms. See Pribram. They control the perceived form of the incoming light. They weigh the information for integration. The form given is a temporary spinner until it becomes aligned with the most coherent holodynes in the information field of the microtube. If they find no alignment form, they create a new one. There is a nanosecond delay in the feedback of the negative wavelength or the oscillation. Memory wavelets filter or neutralize incoming information that is congruent. This allows information that is not novel or new to continue its existence. This results in a total scenario of holodynamically processing of information. In birds, for example, it takes 1/70 of the second to register danger. It takes an additional 1/70 of a second for the bird's body to respond to the microtubules and begin to fly away from the danger. An interesting fact is that it takes the entire flock only 1/70 of a second to begin to fly away once the single bird has registered the presence of danger. In other words, the consciousness of an entire flock is tied to the perception process of each and every bird individually. The first 1/70th of a second registers the danger for the entire flock at the same time as it registers the danger for the individual. Reread that. That one paragraph says so much. That's how we all function. We are like a flock of birds. We all have a fight-flight instinct. We all respond. We all receive information. The study of this bird thing just tells you what human capability is. And that brings good news because when we see danger, we inform the collective. We just don't know what all of that danger is yet. We're still compiling information. So that's why we're not seeing a different direction. But as soon as we can get the whole then everybody responds and responds rather quickly. So that's why I do think no matter how bad things get, the world can be saved and we can change something completely different. It'll never be hopeless.